Hi, thanks for coming this morning. As you all are joining us from the waiting room, take a few minutes here, make sure your speakers are working. If you're having any trouble, you can let us know with the chat button at the bottom. But just take a moment here, make sure speakers and everything are working, and we'll get started in just a few seconds. Okay. Right, looks like we have a few people still connecting their audio. So if you can hear me, I'm glad you're good to go and you're all ready. And good morning. Okay. All right, friends. Well, thank you for being here. We're happy that you could join us this morning to talk about how you can make the world a better place with plants. My name is Katie Marquardt. I work here at the Academy of Natural Sciences, and I'll be helping out today, but I'll be turning things over to our wonderful educators. Before I introduce them, I want to talk about how you can ask questions today. So if you're able to type questions in the chat, or if you have a grown-up nearby that can help you type, the chat icon is at the bottom of your screen, and that will open the chat window when you click it. So you can type your questions in the chat anytime throughout the whole program, and we'll try to answer your questions. But we'll also try to save a few minutes at the end of the program to answer some questions in a question and answer session. So you see on the screen here, two of our wonderful educators from the Academy of Natural Sciences, Mariah Romanensky and Caitlin Del Duca. They manage our early childhood education programs. And today, they want to talk to you about how you can plant to benefit pollinators and other wildlife. So with that, Mariah, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm really excited to be here today and to see all of you joining us at the Academy of Natural Sciences live Small Changes Spark Big Actions event. And so today we're talking about pollinators. And really we need to know, first of all, what is pollen? Pollen is that tiny, 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 tiny little fine, so tiny it'll come up in time. It's little, smaller than that even. It's a tiny little fine, mostly yellow powder that is produced by plants that actually help plants make their seeds. Now, pollen is something that comes when the plant grows, when the flower grows and opens, and then the pollen sometimes gets carried on the wind. And that's a really nice thing. That pollen is important because it gets moved from plant to plant and it helps the plants grow their seeds. Now, what we're really going to talk today, though, about are things called pollinators. It's a big word. You can say it, though. Pollinator. It really means pollen helper. And so those two things together, the pollen and the helper, come together and they carry the pollen to the plant. Now, one pollinator I know you're pretty familiar with sounds a little like this. Zzz, zzz. And it's yellow and black and has a fuzzy little butt. You've probably seen it before. Mary, I saw you chime in the chat first. That's right, it's a bee. So honeybees, bumblebees. Yay, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Those are types of pollinators, but they're not the only ones. There are other ones. These are some of these. All right, here, I'll see if you guys can do this one. This one flies beautifully and gracefully, has some antennas and lands and has a long tongue. And, oh, Elizabeth, Baba, yes, look at these coming in, a butterfly. So a butterfly is another type of a pollinator. And a pollinator, remember, is a pollen helper. So that bee or those butterflies, they land on the flower. Some of them, they eat some of the delicious pollen. And then some of them, they get it stuck on their feet. And then they fly to the next flower and they drop their pollen off. That's right. Thanks, fern butterflies. But that's not the only ones. Wasps, moths. And then the very, very tiny bird that kind of has a name that sounds like, It's got a very long, hey, Irene, hummingbird, good call, that's right. So a hummingbird is also another type of a pollinator. Remember, a pollinator is a pollen helper. They're gonna pick up the pollen, they're gonna move it to the next spot, and they're gonna drop it off. Thanks, Ezra and Noah, that's right, hummingbird, thanks, Gwen. You guys are right on it. So now I want to talk about one of my other favorite pollinators. Now, we can't see this one in Philadelphia or even in Ireland or where I am in Delaware. You can't see this one here, but if we went to some cool zoos or rescues or maybe somewhere like Australia, you could see my favorite pollinator. This one is a mammal and it can fly and it loves fruit, and you might be able to see it hanging upside down. That's right, LB, a bat. So a flying fox is another type of a pollinator. This one has big, wide wings, but it loves to eat fruit. And so when it goes to pick up the fruit, thanks, CW, you're right. So the fruit, the pollen gets stuck on the feet of the bat or on the nose of the bat or on the wings of the bat. And as the bat moves from place to place, it carries that pollen. So yes, Riley, I'm glad you chimed in. I'm loving all of these things I'm seeing in the chat. You guys are amazing. So now that we know all about our pollinators, pollen, since it can't move by itself, it needs some help. Now, pollen is what the plants and the flowers actually use. The flowers use it to make seeds. And seeds are what are going to grow the next batch of flower. So pollen helps the flowers to move from place to get fertilized, right? But then the seeds are what makes the flowers grow again in a new spot. So first we have pollen, then the plants grow, and then the seeds are left behind. And we're going to talk about seeds next. But first, we are going to read an awesome book, and I need your help. In our book, we're going to have pollinators, those bees, those birds, those butterflies, and one I didn't talk about, a ladybug. So little beetles and ants are also pollinators, but we're going to look for a tiny, tiny, tiny little ladybug throughout this whole book. So put on your observing eyes, open them wide. Okay, good job, good job. You got your observing eyes, and I want your listening ears. That's right, Kim, we're looking for ladybugs. I want your listening ears turned all the way up. Good job, good job. And your eyes, we're not only looking for pollinators or ladybugs, we're looking for other pollinators in our book. So the other cool thing about this book is it's an interactive. That means I'm going to read it, but you're going to do an action. Okay. Now, if we were in person and you had my book with you, I would say, touch this, touch this, touch this. But since we're on a screen, I'm going to have you touch the air. Okay. So everybody put your fingers up and touch the air. If I say touch the seed, you can touch the air or you can touch the screen where the seed would be. Now, on my phone, I could probably touch the screen, but probably best to just do it in the air. It's the easiest. Okay. So our story today is called Plant the Tiny Seed by Christy Matheson. I'm guessing you're already seeing seeds and pollinators, right? And we're gonna look all around. I love ladybugs too, Chase. Okay, so here's our ladybug on our cover, but remember, we're gonna look for it throughout the whole book. Okay, so Katie, I think we're ready. Can you pull up our screen for our book? There we go. Okay, so remember, our story is called Plant the Tiny Seed by Christy Matheson. And you're going to get your finger ready because we have actions for every page. Okay, we're ready. Go for it, Katie. There's magic in this tiny seed. Press it down and count to 3. Can you see the tiny seed on the bottom of the screen right underneath the watering can? Okay, count with me. 1, 2, 3. Good job. Did everybody find the ladybug? Okay, look for it on the next page. Here we go. Plant another, then one more. Press them down and count to 4. I'm going to press them down. Press there. So now they're down in the dirt and we're going to count to 4. Hope you're looking for that ladybug. 1, 2, 3, 4. What will happen next? Wiggle your fingers to add some water. Okay, everybody add some water. Good job. Just remember that seed needs some water to grow. Okay, go ahead. Let's see what happened. That's enough. All right. Now rub the sun to make it hotter. Do you see the sun at the top? Okay, everybody rub the sun to make it warmer. We need that sun to come out. You see that pollinator? Do you see it over there on top of our watering can? I know you do. I see you're looking with your big eyes. Okay, let's see what happens next. Tap the cloud and wish for rain. Oh, please, please, please let it rain. Tap the cloud. Tap, tap, tap. Let's see if we did it. Yay! You did it. Look at those seeds growing. Clap to bring the rain again. Okay, everybody clap. Let's see if or to bring the sun again. Let's bring it. Yay! Ah! Find the worm. Look for its tail. Okay, can you see the worm? There it is. Shoo away that hungry snail. Okay, shoo, shoo. Go on, snail. See you later. Snails like to eat little plants. All right. Tell the little bud, good night. Good night, little bud. The tiny bud of the plant is going to go to sleep. All right, let's see what happens. Guess what guess what you'll see in the morning light? Wow. All right, now point to the purple flower. Everybody point to it. Good job. Who came? Who's visiting? All right, let's turn the page and find out. Two pollinators. All right, tap the cloud again. Tap, tap, tap. It's another rain shower. Ooh, good. We need that rain just as much as we need the sun to make our plants grow big and tall. Touch the blossoms gently, please. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, now jiggle the plants to scatter the seeds. Who came to visit? That's right, our hummingbird friends. Okay, jiggle the plants, just be gentle. We're going to scatter those seeds. Shake them, shake them, shake them. So the seeds fall down. Good job. The purple flower needs a clip. Swipe across the stem. Snip, 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 snip. That's right. Close your eyes. Wave your hands in the air. Oh, look, there's magic everywhere. All right, we're going to freeze right here. Katie, don't go off the screen yet. I want all of our friends to look around and see if we can count how many pollinators are visiting us in this picture. I'm going to start on my left side. I see one yellow butterfly, one blue butterfly, one orange and black butterfly, and another butterfly over on the other screen. That's right. I see 4 butterflies. I see 1 hummingbird and 2 bees. That's right. So I see 7, but is there a ladybug here somewhere? 2 bees, 4 butterflies. That's right. There's a monarch. We see a hummingbird. Can anybody find, is the ladybug here somewhere? 8. I love it. Thanks, Jack and Gabe and Mom. I'm going to look in my book to see if I can point it out. I want to make sure I've got it in the right spot. That's right, our ladybug. I thought I could see it. It is on the flower. Thanks, Riley. Yep, there it is. Let's see if I can get really close. Right there on our flower. Yep. So 8 pollinators came to help all of those flowers grow big and tall, to spread that pollen from flower to flower to flower, so those seeds can get made, because then those flowers can grow again next year. I'm so glad you guys liked our book. That was a fun way to learn about pollen and pollinators, and to help bring the plants from the tiny baby seed that they planted all the way through the big flower at the end. Now, we know that somebody said they planted flowers. That's awesome. So that's what we're going to do now. We're actually going to learn a little bit about the seeds that you guys all have in your packet. And if you don't have a packet, that's okay. You can use any seed to plant. It doesn't matter. Or you can just go outside and look for flowers and pollinators. I know the bees were outside yesterday having a good old time before the wind got strong. Now, some kinds of seeds, remember we were talking about pollen first and our pollinators. Well, there are other animals that help plants too, because they might eat the seeds that fall off of the plants, like birds and animals like seeds too, and they might carry them across the land and go to the bathroom and leave them behind, right? That's actually one of the things that happens. Another thing, they might carry them on their feet, right? They might have a little burr or a little hook that hooks into the fur so those seeds can move. And another way seeds can move is by the wind. They can get carried and traveled in the wind. I bet a lot of seeds moved yesterday, which would have been pretty neat to see. So They do poo them out, Chase. That's right. They do. You know what's kind of wild is that a lot of stuff that happens outside happens because of poo. I mean, dirt is a lot of that is actually worm castings, which is the leavings behind of worms after they break down or decompose all of those rotten fruits and vegetables and things that get left behind. All of our pollinators help with that. Um, they go to the bathroom and that gets broken down. So, I mean, it's a whole big cycle and it's an awesome cycle. That's why we have all of our favorite delicious foods to eat and flowers to smell and look pretty and also just be wonderful for the environment. So, I'm going to ask, I'm loving all of these things coming in the chat because I wish I could read them all right now, but we'll have time, I promise. So I'm going to ask my friend, Miss Caitlin. I'm seeing lots of people have planted flowers and peach trees and sunflowers and all sorts of things in their gardens. I'm so excited about hearing about that. I'm going to ask Miss Caitlin if she wouldn't mind talking a little bit about some of the seeds that you guys have and that you got in your seed packet and how they move around. And then we're going to do some planting too. Miss Caitlin, can you take it away?
All right, good morning, everybody. So I think that a bunch of you probably got some seed packets. They look just like this. They have the small actions spark big changes on the front, and they contain a whole lot of seeds inside. So what I did for today is I pulled a bunch of my seeds out and I put them in a little container. So we'll pull a couple of them out one by one, but we also have a picture of some of the seeds up to share with you on the screen. So I think we'll look at that first, and then we'll go and talk about some of the seeds that we have. Thank you, Katie, so much. So you can see that there are a whole bunch of seeds that are circled on our page here. Now the seeds on the top that are all circled are from flowers, and the seeds that are on the bottom are from grasses. And so they're just a little bit different. Both of them are mixed in to your seed packets. Now let's look at a couple of seeds right off the bat. So our seeds right up on the top right corner are called black-eyed Susans. And you'll notice that those seeds are really tiny. So how do you think those seeds might be able to move? So do they move in the wind? Do they move by animals eating them? Or maybe do they just fall down and plant themselves into the ground? All right, Irene, in the chat, I see, and Elizabeth, you both said winds, and you are exactly right. So a lot of those very teeny tiny seeds like the black-eyed Susans, there's aster seeds on the left-hand side, they're carried in the wind. And so are a lot of the grass seeds as well. So some of the really fluffy looking grass seeds in the middle towards the bottom, even some of the ones on the left-hand side, they can get carried by the wind too because they're light and they get blown away really easily. Now some of our bigger seeds, we have the oxeye sunflowers on the top left. Let's see, we also have the coreopsis flowers, which are more towards the right. They're a little bit larger. How do you think those seeds might move around? They're really nice and big. So I don't know if they'll be going in the winds, but they do move a very special way. All right, Kim and Emma, exactly. Those get eaten by animals. So a lot of birds like to eat those seeds, and then the animals will go to the bathroom, and that's how those seeds get distributed. All right, so thank you, Katie. I think we will pop off of this screen for right now, and then we will get started to plant some of our seeds. All right, now I do have to mention to you guys, if we have containers like the one I'm going to use today, if we are going to leave our plants that we've planted in our containers and keep them in our houses or just in the containers, I would say we might not want to plant a whole bunch of grass seeds because most of our grass seeds are going to get to be about 3 feet tall. So they're going to be pretty big for a very tiny container. But if we're just starting the seeds in our pots and then we're going to put them outside, we can plant a whole big mix and then they can all go outside together. And that's not going to be a big deal. So it's up to you. We can plant all grasses. You can plant all flowers, or you could do a little mix of both. So I think it's time we are going to have everybody gather up their materials if we're going to plant. So what we're going to need is we're going to need something to put our seeds into, so a container. Exactly. If we have some soil, I put some soil into mine already. If not, we'll need some soil to put into our containers. We'll need our seed packets. And then a little bit later on, we'll use some water, but not quite yet. All right, so it looks like everybody is starting to gather up their materials. Excellent. So what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of the soil into our containers. I filled mine most of the way up, but I'm going to add a little bit more, and I'm going to make it nice and flat on the top. All right, so there's a nice space for all of our seeds. What I'm going to do is I have picked out a couple of special seeds to share with you so you can know maybe what some of your seeds look like in your packets. So the first seed I am going to put into my container today is the coreopsis seed. And the coreopsis seed is really small, but there we go. Whoop, I dropped it. Let me get another one. There. Oh my goodness, these are really hard to share. So the coreopsis seed is a really special seed because it looks exactly like a tick. And so if you have a seed that looks like a tick, it has this kind of big rounded bump on it. It's darker in the middle, it's lighter on the outside. That's the coreopsis. And when it's planted and it grows up, it makes a very pretty yellow flower. So if you like to have a yellow flower, that's a really nice plant to have. And it attracts all sorts of birds and little mice and things like to eat those seeds in the fall. And in the spring and the summer, it will attract bees and wasps and also hoverflies. So you'll get a lot of different insects that are going to visit that. All right, so we'll just stick it a little bit into the dirt, and then we're going to leave that there. The next seed I'm going to plant is some of the black-eyed Susans. Now the black-eyed Susans are teeny, 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 tiny. You can see there's just a couple of little dots on my finger. Those are some black-eyed Susans, and I'm going to drop them into my dirt as well. All right, so we have added those in there. I'm going to put my plants outside, so I think it might be fun to add some grasses into ours. Now this grass has 3 points to it, and it makes it easy for you guys to identify. So you can see it has 3 spikes, 1, 2, 3. All right, and so this is one of the seeds that you probably have in your packet, and this is Virginia wild rye. And so we're gonna put all of that in there as well. Now you can also just dump a whole bunch of seeds in and see what happens. Feel free to do that. All right, so I have added maybe 6 or 8 seeds to mine. You can add more if you would like. And it looks like everybody's pretty much gotten their seeds in there. And then I'm gonna put just a little bit of dirt on the top. Now it's important when you're covering them up that you don't put too much soil on the top of them, or they might not be able to come out. So just about this much dirt between my fingers on the top of your seeds is going to be more than enough. We don't need too much more than that. All right, so now that we've tucked our seeds in, they're a little bit protected from being blown away, we can add some water to our seeds if you have any. If not, we can do it later. Now with my little seeds, I actually keep a spray bottle so that I don't accidentally water them too much. So I would just go and give them a spray. So just 1, 2, and that'll help to keep the soil nice and moist, gives the seeds some water, and then I can put my plants out in a sunny spot in my house. Now, the good thing about this time of year, our plants are almost ready to be outside all the time. They can get planted in the ground outside as long as it's not going to be freezing overnight. And so I looked at the forecast for the next 10 days in Philadelphia, and it's not going to get below freezing in the next 10 days. So we should be safe to put our plants outside. So if you want to plant some of your seeds outside as well, you can do that. Or inside, we can wait for our plants to sprout. Now, some of these plants, like the grasses, are going to sprout really, really soon. And so the grass seeds, they might start to show up in your pots in about 5 days, maybe even a little less. And some of the flowers take a lot longer. They might take up to 20 days to show a little green sprout up in your pot. And so don't be worried if you don't see those plants for a while. They're still growing underneath the soil. They're growing their roots down, and it just takes them a while to pop up. And so I do have a couple questions. So I will answer some questions in just a second. Now, a lot of these, that's a good question. If we're going to plant the plants outside, do we need a sunny spot? A lot of these plants like full sun. Yep. So they can have a little bit of shade, a little bit of sun, but they can handle sun as well. So feel free to pick a nice sunny spot for them to be outside. The only thing most of these seeds don't like is really swampy, wet water. So if you have a place that's really low and it fills up in a puddle and it's wet all the time outside, we might want to pick a bit of a drier spot for them. But full sun, part sun is all good. And the next thing we want to do, Katie was nice enough to plant some of these seeds a while ago. So we can take a look at what her plants look like after about 20 days. And so I'll let her show you those plants in her pots.
Yeah, can you see them there, Caitlin? A little bit.
I can. Awesome.
So the grasses, like you said, they came up pretty quickly, about a week, so 5 to 7 days. And then this little one right here, that just popped up, and it's been like 3 weeks. So it was a little seed in the ground doing its work, germinating. That means it was starting to grow, and it just popped up, and it took about 3 weeks.
Excellent. All right. So it will take a while. So some of those grass seeds you see right away, you can also see how big they were. Those grass seeds were getting super nice and tall, and the flowers were still really tiny, but they will get big. Don't you worry. It just takes a little while. So out of all of our seeds that I was looking at, they take between 4 and about 22 days. So that's going to be the range that you're going to start to see the plants. And the other thing is, depending on the type of plants that you have, you're going to get all sorts of animals visiting your seeds. So the black-eyed Susans, butterflies love black-eyed Susans, or bees and animals like that. Another thing that's pretty cool about black-eyed Susans, if you live in a place where there's lots and lots of deer that like to eat your flowers, deer do not like black-eyed Susans. So they are a great plant to have outside if you have some animals like deers or maybe even gophers that are groundhogs that are going to like to come and try to eat your flowers. They're a really good one to have. Then the purple cone flower, that's another plant that we have in our seed packets. They attract hummingbirds, they attract butterflies, bees, and they're good for people too. So purple cone flowers, has anybody ever heard of echinacea before? Has anybody ever heard of that before? So people use that if you have a cold. And so it helps prevent infections. And so you can take it, a lot of times it might be in a cough drop, you might have it in tea, but it comes from the purple cone flower plant. And so plants are really useful for people too. So that's another good thing to have around. All right, now let's see. I think there were a bunch of questions coming up in the chat.
Miss Caitlin, before you answer any of those questions, I wanted to see if any of our kids were willing to demonstrate what it would look like to be a seed that maybe got blown by the wind. So I'm wondering, while we're looking at our questions, so we can figure out which ones, if we can answer all of them in time. So I was wondering if there's anyone out there who wants to show me how it might be to be moved by the wind. Let me see. Is there anybody out there who wants to do the wind, moving the seeds around? Let's see. Oh, I see some movement. That's right. Oh, I like it. There we go. We see some seeds moving. Let's see. What about a seed that maybe just falls to the ground? Can anybody just be a seed that falls to the ground? Here, I'll do it. Here I go. Oh, wait, there I am. Okay, so seeds can fall, seeds can fly. Does anyone think they can be a seed that rolls? Like that tumbles along? All right, Chase, can I see you be a tumbling seed for me? Be careful. Let's see a seed. So any seed that kind of rolls around, you can curl up in a ball and you can roll around a little bit. All right, good stuff. Well, I know that we have a bunch of questions. So those are just 3 different ways that seeds can move. And we shared with you guys, or we're going to email you a bunch of cool activities that you can do with your family all about seeds, right? So how seeds move and seeds that you eat. Because did you know that we actually eat a lot of seeds? I know, it's kind of wild. So here we go. This is one of our seed activities. It's called Seed Sleuths. And it will be part of a program called Growing Great Veggies and Fruits that the Academy of Natural Sciences works on with Del Monte Foods and with Growing Great, which is a gardening and nutrition organization out of California. So you guys we're going to send you this one and the other one called Seeds on the Move, which is all about how seeds move. So that can be the rolling, the blowing, the falling, the dropping, or whatever else that it is, and what you can observe. So I'm super excited that those are going to come to you guys. So let's see, Miss Kaylin, did you have a chance to look at any of those questions in the chat?
I did. So I think it was Elizabeth had asked if the black-eyed Susans hurt the groundhogs. And so they don't hurt any animals. They don't hurt the groundhogs or the deer. They just don't taste very good. So there's a lot of plants that don't taste good to certain animals to prevent being eaten. So that way they could make a lot more plants in the future and they can survive. And so they just have a taste that groundhogs and deer don't like very much. So they're not harmful, they won't hurt the animals, but they're not tasty. And so that was a really good question. And another question was about pollinators. And so pollinators, like a bee or a butterfly or a hummingbird, they are going to get the nectar or the sweet parts of the plants and eat that. And what happens is all of that little pollen, so all of those little teeny tiny little powders get or transfer onto the animal. So it just sticks onto their feet or onto their sides, onto their wings if it's a little insect. And then those animals are going to transfer that pollen to another plant. And that is going to get dropped off on another plant. And so they are just carrying that from one place to another. All right, so they're transferring it. And that is how the pollen moves from one flower to another, because they aren't always able to do that themselves. They can't move it because the plants aren't moving themselves from one flower to another. And so they use animals to help them to be able to do that. All right. And sometimes animals might eat some of your plants. Like maybe you would have a caterpillar or a slug or something like that that might have a little bit of a snack on some of the plants, but that's okay because they live around here too. And so that can happen. They might take a little bit of a taste, but they're not going to hurt the plants or anything like that. And so we should be okay with all of the plants that we took today. And I think the last question is a good one to answer. How would you transfer the plant from the pot outside without hurting it? That's a really good question. So what I like to do is once the plants have a little bit of roots, you are able to kind of move the the dirt and the plants and keep those little root clusters all together. So you would just pick it up and then you would gently transfer it to a hole that you placed in the ground. So you would just pick that whole piece up, move it over, place it in the ground. You would pack some dirt around it, and then it is ready to be outside. So you can do that for all of your little clusters of plants and seeds that you have growing in your pots. And that's the easiest way to move it outside without hurting them. All right. So thank you, everybody. Did
Miss
anybody
Caitlin, I have a catnip plant that I need to transfer because I found out I wanted catnip so I could grow it because here, look, it's my friend who's already visiting. This is Wooly. She likes plants too. So I have this plant that needs to be transferred, and it's a catnip plant because my cats like to eat it. So I wanted to show you, somebody asked about moving a plant. Okay. So what you're going to do is this is my catnip plant that I bought. So I didn't raise this from seed, but once your plants get a little bit bigger, what you can do is you give a little squeeze, okay, which will loosen up the dirt. And then you kind of do a nice gentle tip and a little bit of a pull. And so what you can see here, it's my own house. I'm allowed to make a mess. So what you can see there, these are the roots that are all down around the bottom, and it kind of is collected like that. So like Caitlin said, you can pick it up and then you can transfer this to the place outside that you want to put it. Either you can put it in a bigger pot or you can put it in the ground, depending on what kind of plant and where you want it to be. So that's right, LB, those were some roots. And so you can see on my catnip plant, this is one from Home Depot. So it's been there in their place for a while. You can see all of those roots. And remember how roots are super important because they carry that water and those nutrients all the way up into the stalk of the plant and then out into the leaves. So then the leaves can go through their process of photosynthesis, another awesome big word, right? So to then give the food back to the plants. Good question. Do you break up the roots? I do a little bit. Especially if they're tight like this one, there are a lot of roots there. So if I were to plant this in my bigger pot here, I might go ahead and just kind of loosen up just a little bit. See, I'm kind of dropping some of the dirt here, and that's okay. Just loosen it. I don't want to break them up, but I want to loosen them a little bit so then they have a little more air and room for those nutrients and things to come up from the ground through the water. Okay, so that's one of those things that you can do. Somebody just asked a question, will the animals eat the plant? Sometimes, yep. And that's okay. That's okay because, in that case, we're helping the animals anyway. So we would have been helping the plants by having our plants out there and having our pollinators come through. Some of them will survive. Some of them might get eaten. That's okay. That's kind of what it's all about. And some of them will grow to be tall and beautiful, and you'll be able to see in a couple of weeks, which is super exciting. All right. Well, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing the questions come through on here. Miss Katie or Miss Caitlin, or do you see anything else that we want to focus on before we go? Because I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, we do have just a few minutes left, and we do have two friends that raised their hand. We can take a question from them. Oliver and Sebastian, would you like to ask your question? I can help you unmute. So you might get that question on your screen if you'd like to unmute and ask a question.
Okay. The question was, do the flowers come back next year?
They will, yes. So all of the plants that are included in our packets are what we call perennial plants. So they will come back year after year after year, which is really nice. So they're not a plant that you're going to grow and then you're only going to have them from one season. They will continue to have them for many years to come. That's a great question.
Yeah, that was an excellent question. And I'll also point out that you might not see a lot of flowers from these this year, but they'll grow back even stronger next year and the year after and the year after. So if you don't see flowers this year, don't be too upset because that means next year you're going to see more. Okay. All right, and thank you, Oliver and Sebastian, for that question. Callie, I see you have your hand up. Let me see here if I can ask you to unmute.
What's this seed.
Oh, let me see if I can find you. Can you show us one more time?
It's on the floor.
It fell on the floor. She's going to get it real quick. Sorry.
I know.
That happened
there
to
we
me
go.
too.
On the chart, it was underneath the
Oh.
black-eyed Susan, or black-eyed Susan, yeah.
You know what? I think that is one that we did not have identified in the picture. So I'm not certain what that is. Caitlin, do you have an idea of what that one might be?
I am not certain about this one either. It was
Probably a
not on-
flower.
It is a flower. So I
Mhm.
started looking, I have a list of my own that I had started to go through some of them. So I'm trying to see if I can match any of them up. But it looks like it's one that I have not gotten to yet, which means that it is probably at the very bottom of this list. If you look on the back, it has all of the seeds and the names. So I started kind of from the top and going through and then trying to identify the seeds that I had in my little planter. So it was just one that I haven't gotten to yet, but that's a good question. Hopefully we can find an answer for you and try to figure out what that seed is.
Great. Okay. And let's see, I was just going to check the chat really quickly to see if we had any more questions there. I don't think so. I think we're good. So before we leave, I'm going to share my screen one more time because I have something fun to tell you all about. Here we go. Okay, so you can see there on the screen, the City Nature Challenge started yesterday, but it's going throughout the whole weekend. So the City Nature Challenge is just a friendly competition where residents of more than 300 cities around the whole world compete to see who can record the most wildlife on iNaturalist. And you can help Philadelphia or the city where you live win the challenge. Right now until May 3rd, we'll be using iNaturalist to record our observations of the plants, animals, and fungi we see outside. Also, in celebration of the City Nature Challenge, the Academy did start the Academy Naturalist Project on iNaturalist. The project will allow our Academy community, including our scientists, our members, and your family, to connect and explore nature together. When you join the project and upload your observations, they could be identified by our scientists and added to the Academy's virtual collection. So I'll be sending the grown-up who helped you register for the event an email with the recording of today's program, the activity sheets from Mariah, and some fun activity sheets that help your family explore nature during the City Nature Challenge. Okay. All right, and I will stop sharing my screen so that we can all say goodbye. Look at that, we're right on time, 10:45. All right, thank you, Mariah and Caitlin. This was so much fun. I loved learning about everything. I learned so much, and I hope everyone else here did too. Any last words there from Mariah or Caitlin?
I'm just so glad that I got to see everybody planting and doing their activities and joining us and listening to the story. And I can't wait to see you for our next event. So happy planting and go out and join the City Nature Challenge. I have it already.
Yay.
I downloaded iNaturalist on my phone, so I'm going to go exploring this afternoon. We'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks so much
Thank
for
you
coming.
all. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.